Hello, this is BJ from Hearns Hobbies, and today I'll be looking at big kit. This is the TAMIYA Supermarine Spitfire Mk.VIII. And this is in 32nd scale. Now this is quite a special kit. It's quite a large kit, and to many I think they consider this as one of the best Spitfire kits around. Now Spitfires, there are quite a lot of different versions, and this particular version I guess grabbed my eye because, I don't know if you can see, there is an Australian version that you can build. It has the included decals right there. Okay, let's have a closer look at the box from the top. Beautiful box art as usual from TAMIYA. They never disappoint with the quality of their box art. So here we go, we've got nice embossed gold lettering there. You know, nice and special, because it is a special kit. Okay, so this is a Mk.VIII. The Mk.VIII was the intended advancement of the Mk.VI and Mk.VII, but it was the non-pressurized cabin version. Now, in the development of this particular aircraft, it does have a more powerful engine. Does have greater range as well, with additional tanks in the wings, and does have a few little details like the pointed tips on the rudder and such. Now the Mk.IX actually went into production faster than this because there were delays in production, and because of that, when the Mk.IX came out, the Mk.IX was seen as an interim type fighter to combat the latest German aircraft, such as the FW-190. They found that the Mk.IX performed very, very well, so they did concentrate on building some of those at particular factories, and the Mk.VIII was produced at Supermarine. And hence, this particular version ended up being used in theatres outside of England. So predominantly in Italy, Southwest Asia, Southeast Asia, and hence, you know, I showed you the Australians. Australians use these as well. And this actually fought against Japanese Zeros. Okay, let's open it up and have a closer look inside. Now, it is a pretty thick box. All right, let's move this over here. And jam-packed full of the, I guess that's a pretty standard grey plastic from TAMIYA. I always like grey, it's very familiar. Grey is like a nice neutral colour, and you can see issues or impurities in it as you're building it, and hence why primes are always or generally used as a grey as well, because it helps you see surface details. All right, so let's unbox each one of these sprues and have a closer look. All right, let's move that aside. All right, what do we have here? All right, so we have a large sprue with predominantly the wings. Okay, we have the underside, and we have the top. So you can see the panels are open here. This is to view the insides, I think. I will check that with the manual later. As you can see, there are quite a lot of open sections, undercarriage doors. We have the machine gun exits on the wing leading edges. And this appears to be a strut. So I think that will go across the wings and act as a spar for strength. Now let's zoom in here so you can see more of the surface detail. Now this is what we'll be looking for in a fine 32nd scale kit. It does have some really nice, trying to pick up all the reflections so you can see all the fine surface rivets all the way on all these panels. There's some more pronounced ones as well. Move that around and see if we can get the reflections right, and then we go to the tops as well. So access panels, those round ones, and we also have super fine, they're all indented rivets. Now recessed rivets are great for building because it allows you to put washers in them and highlight that detail easily. And that's one of those things that's been accepted as the norm with modern kits, to have recessed rivets. very early kits used to have raised rivets, which model builders boo-booed, because you do lose a lot of that detail when you're sanding joins. But in essence, quite a lot of the raised rivets are more accurate, I guess you would say. But trying to replace raised rivets is nigh impossible for your average builder. So hence why these sort of recessed rivets are the way to go these days. So to achieve that, it is much more skill in cutting the molds. So Tamiya, having all the skill, they do a very good job with this. Okay, so there's your wings. I'm going to keep moving because we've got a lot of sprues to go through. All right, what do we got here? We've got some control surfaces. All right, so of particular interest is the pointer tip here of the Mk.VIII. So you've got your elevators, wing tips, ailerons, flaps, and the underside. So let's get a closer look at some of these details too. Alright, so you can see some of the ribbing on the insides of these flaps. Then you see the surface detail. There are super fine rivets, if I can get that reflection just right. Again, these are all recessed rivets. A bit of wash will bring those out very nicely. Okay, there's a rudder. Trim tab there. And it's nice to see these very large panels for where the wingtips and then also the elevators will go into the tail, because this will align it and help you make sure that they're level. Earlier days, all these locating points would have been really thin, and so you have a bit of flap. You have to measure it up, put in a jig. This definitely makes it a lot easier. And with Tamiya's philosophy of being I guess I'll call it a straightforward build. They don't want to overcomplicate the assembly at all. So even though this particular kit is quite a complicated kit, in general their philosophy is to make sure that it's a very enjoyable build. So engineering is an important part of it. And such as those designs for those locating plates, it definitely helps. Okay, so we've got a couple of sprue here. These are identical. So we've got some radiators. We've got a bomb here. Also wheels. So we've got the wheel sections here. Might just put this one aside because this is duplicate. Let's go in deep. Okay, so the wheels are separate simply because the tires are actually rubber in this kit. And here we'll just do this so you can see the surface detail again. Very fine on all panels. And you've got the bomb detail split in half. And there's quite a few structural members. You see there's a hex there, so that'll take a screw. Not too sure what that's for at the moment. This kit does come with a stand, so you can have the aircraft mounted. But all in all, very clean, as we expect from Tamiya. Alright, so I'll put that away. Alright, let's look at some clear bits. Now, clear bits are going to be a bit hard to see, so let's get a black background. See what I can do with this. Does that help? I think it does. Let's zoom in a bit. Alright, we'll take it out of its bag. Be careful with these. Okay, so we have the clear parts. All the canopies are molded in separate components, so you can have it open or closed. You notice how on the modern kits that these are actually molded with protection, like a little cage around it. So even, you know, packed in the box, it's not going to get damaged. So with this multi-part mold, okay, so you've got parts coming this way and this way, there will be a seam line down the center, which is unavoidable. But I mean, the seam lines are pretty fine now, so it'll be quite easy to give it a really fine sand and polish. Okay, over here we've got the rear section. We've got the armor plated windscreen. And then you've got the instrument panels. What do we have here? These wingtips? Probably wingtips. They look like it could be the clipped wingtips. And they're left clear, so I guess you can mask the lenses. There's a goggles for the pilot as well. And all in all, the plastic looks pretty thin, which is a good thing because we want as little distortion as possible. There's nothing like having distortion. Look at that, that's pretty good. So my finger isn't too widely distorted, even though I mean it is a curved windscreen. But if it was thick, then that'll look really unnatural. So if you chose to have this closed up cockpit, you'll still be able to see all the detail on the inside without too much obstruction. I think that's good. All right, so let's put this back in the bag so I don't scratch any of it. All right, so let's pop that over here. All right, what do we have next? All right, let's move this out of the way. A little small bag. What do we have here? All right, looks like a landing carriage. This is perhaps part of the firewall for the engine, because we do have a full engine detail in here. So small panels, tail wheel. So let's have a closer look. So you see there's the undercarriage there. Got these various panels. Over here, this could be the for the undercarriage. There's a bulkhead, which I guess from this side would probably be part of the engine firewall, maybe. And then more panels and these little tail wheel right there. Nicely detailed wheel. Okay, let's move on to what have we got here? Right, we've got some control surfaces. Let's put the flaps. What do we have here? Are they wingtips? They could be the long wingtips. And then some other panels. So let's have a look at the surfaces. So super fine rivets you can see along here again, and then along all these panels. Again, you have the very long tongues for locating. Some really small bits, not too sure what that is. Okay, then we get on to this bit, the fuselage. Okay, so the fuselage is going to look really short because with the full engine detail, the engine mounts and the front end is all separate. Okay, so here we have our fuselage up to the cockpit. We've got the section here with a fold down door. Really very nice. Let's have a look. Let's get a close up to these details. So you can see again a lot of fine rivets, and a lot of these will only be visible if you put washers on them because they are very, very shallow. Really nice access points. The rear section. So you can see the quality of the rivets even going all the way across the top. It will start getting softer across here because of the way it's been molded, but I mean, they are still there, so it'll be easy enough to, after sanding, to just quickly mark in the rivets where you've lost some of that detail. All right, and then we have our instrument panel right there. It's got quite a lot of depth to this, so it's not just a flat panel. Okay, very nice. All right, and then we have this section here. I won't bother taking this out of the plastic. But that looks like tail wheel struts, the two halves. Yes, all right, so nice. All right, what do we move on to? All right, so some more small bits. Again, it looks like it's been duplicated. All right, so what do we have here? Well, it looks like we've got some wheels here. And we've got different undercarriage doors. So again, a panel for the landing gear. And then we have all of the exhaust stacks here. And you only appreciate that if I zoom in. Let's just make sure that's focused. Okay, again, we've got super fine rivet details even on these panels. I don't really know what the difference is between these doors. It's going to be something different. Got different numbers. And then there's the wheel cover flaps as well. And then we've got all the exhaust stacks here. Now these have been slide molded. So slide molding means there's the top of the mold, the bottom of the mold, and then another mold that's come through the slide this way, which allows all these holes to be molded in. Okay, so this end there are round, and we've got the flat ovals on this side. Really cleanly molded. Absolutely beautiful. And so these must be the wheels here. I thought I saw wheels earlier, but these look more like the wheels, I think. Probably be proven wrong again. Okay, so I've got 2 sprue of that. All right, we're only about halfway through. All right, so over here we have propellers. Okay, so these are 4-bladed props. So as you imagine, just cut these both out and they just slot 90 degrees to one another. We've got these opening panels, or panel covers I should say. You've got the spinner, nose cone, intakes. Again, there's the intake plate and radiators. So if we get into that, you see all the detail on the radiators, all molded in. These panels have got very fine rivet details, multiple lines of them. There's some surface detail on this, not too sure what that bit is. They're on either side. Perhaps the undercarriage wheels, or the wells on the back side. Okay, and then in this separate little packet, I'm not going to bother opening this. It's got some radiator intakes. Okay. Now I've got a fairly large bit of sprue here, which appears to be some of the front end. Okay, we've got the engine mounts. We've got, this is probably the firewall here. And then we've got parts of the supercharger. Just overall engine bits. So if I get really tight, see the crazy surface detail on this. There's actually raised rivets on this one. You see the supercharger, little bits, some hoses, lots of hoses, and then this is where we get into the engine mounts. Okay, so you got left and right there, super fine. Some kind of grill there, and then other bulkheads. Very nice. Okay, what do we got here? This looks like the engine. Okay, definitely the engine. Big chunky bits. Okay, you can see the engine, the crankcase. Really fine raised details. You can see the casting details of the cylinders. Very nice. Bits and pieces. You've got your prop output here. Bottom of the engine, the sump. Really clean mouldings. And lots of bits. Okay. What do we got here? All right, there's some panel covers. And they've been blistered. So where are these? These are for the top of the wing, maybe? It's a really nice surface detail there. Some proud of the surface. Lots of rivets. Love rivets. These are probably the gun covers for the leading edge of the wing. Okay. Now we've got a pilot. This is something you don't often see in 32nd scale aircraft anymore. It's figurines. Okay, so you have your option of a seated pilot and a standing. Is it a pilot? Probably a pilot. So there's the head. Nicely sculpted. And cap's quite nice too. So not too many parts. Here we have the pilot's head. Wearing the cap and the mask. I love figures in the way that they add so much understanding the scale of the model. You can see that that's the back of the pilot because it's in two pieces. Okay, what do we have now? So small bits here. Again, this is parts of the engine. This is probably the panel covers. So where your cowling is going to be hanging off. The exhaust would be popping out there, I'd say. Whoops. Super fine. Okay, so you get that mirrored on that one as well. Okay, and this appears to be cockpit detail. Okay, so you've got the various bulkheads here. You've got interior detail on the sides of the cockpit. More bulkheads, you've got the seat. A lot of individual parts. So let's have a closer look at all this. There's a seat. Got the seat frames. A bulkhead. Another bulkhead. These are the details on the side of the cockpit. So all the framework, which is proud of the inside of the fuselage. Got all these bulkheads here too. Probably drill out all these holes. Some external covers with some rivet detail on those as well. Got some tanks. Quite exquisite. Okay. Then we have a stand. So that's something you don't often see. It's quite large, but it's really slimline. So you got the vertical strut there. It's reasonably big. Won't take it out of the plastic, you get the idea of what it's like. I don't need to check the surface detail on that out, but it is a very nice looking slimline black stand. Okay, what have we got now? We go to decals. So decals looks quite extensive. There's 2 sheets. Just carefully pull those out. Alright, so what do we have here? Okay, so we've got 1 set of American decals. The Lonesome Polecat. That's pretty nice nose art. So these are TAMIYA printed decals. TAMIYA are known to have quite thick decals, which in a way it makes it easy to apply. But if you look at the reflections, these are actually the low carrier film type. They're quite thin. You can see the white is quite dense, which is handy because these will be going over quite dark camouflage, or even over silver. It helps being dense. You don't want the color underneath coming through. All right, so they're the American ones. And then if we just take off this protective film, we've got the other liveries there. So we've got the shark's mouth, which is pretty classical, isn't it? We have the white and blue roundels, which are the Australian markings. All kinds of various markings here. Over here we've got some swastikas. So that's generally the aircraft that have been shot down. You put on an insignia. But these are the, I don't know if I can show you. I'm trying to get a reflection. You can't really see because I'm trying to show you that these are actually matte decals. They're not the standard glossy type, which makes it easier for military aircraft. Now what do we have left? So there's a little bag here which I'm not going to open up. It has masks for the windscreens. And then also some placards for the stand. So you get your choice of a silver background or a black background. Okay, so what do we have left now? There's actually a little box in here, which is a bit special. And this has got the special bits in it. Now what are the special bits? Okay, so we've got the cowlings. These are the engine cowlings. They're all been individually injected and cut and then packaged for protection. Okay, so they're in their cardboard boxes. This one here as well. You've got the sides of the cowlings and the bottom. And that reveals the Photo-etch. Okay, so let's get in a bit tighter on that. So quite extensive. You got seat belts right there, instruments. Some of these really fine bits, I have no idea where they go. But as you can see, it's pretty special, isn't it? And being silver, this is stainless steel, it's quite thick. And then actually, almost missed that, there's more on the back there. Alright, what else do we have? We've got a packet of rubber tyres. And there's some hosing in there as well, so around the engine. So it looks like there's, what is that? Three tyres. There's one tyre here in halves. and other tyres molded here. We'll check the instructions and see what that's about. Okay, so there's the rubber tyres, and then little packets which I'm not going to open. We've got some tiny magnets which are actually holding on to other magnets, so they'll be holding on the cowlings there. The tiny magnets. And then we've got a set of screws. That's reminiscent of their motorbike builds. Tiny screwdriver, which you definitely get in a motorbike kit, and some poly caps for rotating bits. And then we've got some stainless steel rods, probably for hinging control surfaces. Okay, that's all pretty special, isn't it? Let's put all this stuff back, and we will have a look at the paperwork that comes with this particular kit. Okay, so what do we get? Got a little booklet here. This is a reference book. Goes through the instructions, the history. Instructions is what I'm going to look at next, of the Spitfire. So we've got Japanese and English as well. Areas of operations, different variants, different marks. Chronology of the different marks as well, and then some reference photos, which is very handy. And then let's get into the manual, and the manual's pretty big. All right, let's zoom out for that one. Does that all fit in there? Probably does. Let's make a bit of room. Move that there. There's the side, lots of bits. Okay, so there's a photo of the built model. You can just see how many of these rivets there are on the outside. Again, we've got a bit of history. Recommended tools. We've got the paint list right here, using the TAMIYA codes. And then we've got the variants of the markings which can be built in this kit. So you need to pick which one you want to start off with. I'm more aiming for this one, which would be Wing Commander Bobby Gibbs of the RAAF, Royal Australian Air Force. And then we start the build. So we get the fuselage. That's all getting prepared, a few internal details, left and right sides, and then we get right into the cockpit. So we've got the compass getting built and put onto the bulkheads there. Instrument panel, you see how it's got the multiple depth there. We've got the clear sections for the lenses, with the decals applied from behind. So you can see how much depth there is. We've got the pedals, control stick. This is all starting to go together with the bulkheads, and it's starting to look like the cockpit now. Start building the seat. Seat onto the armor plate. Rear framework, rear bulkhead, and then that all goes onto the floor panel. And then you've got your choices of either putting in just the seat belts if you want it empty, or you can add in your pilot figure. Okay, so this is how you fold the Photo-etch. That's for the seat belts. And then we've got the side details of the cockpit. That all gets glued onto the sides, and you have this whole sub-assembly, which, as you can see, is sandwiched between the fuselage halves. And there's that firewall bit, which well, it is sort of firewall bit. And then you've got something that looks like an aircraft. So now we start working on the rudder and the horizontal stabilizers. And you can see those rods in here. So those are the stainless steel rods we looked at the end. So they're actually going in there to act as pivoting points for the control surfaces. Horizontal stabilizers glued together, elevators, and then we've got undercarriage. So there's a tail wheel. Then we start working on the wing. Okay, we've got certain parts being put together here for the undercarriage bays. Glued into the base. There's that structural part which we saw earlier. We've got the panels here, which are going into place. More access panels. And then we've got the radiators. Got the wing tips here. So there were the two to choose from. So there was the extended ones, or there's the regular type. And then we start putting them together. So there's the option of the wings there. We've got the machine gun covers, radiators left and right. We've got the rudder, sorry, the ailerons, and the flaps down here. Oh, there's the photo-etch bits. Those really thin bits that I couldn't recognize. They're going on the flaps. Got the bomb there. Flaps getting glued in. So you can choose flaps up or down. Got the fuselage here mating onto the wings now. And we'll start building the front end. Okay, so I've got the main undercarriage. Got the wheel assemblies glued in place, and then we start on the engine. So the engine all getting glued together to supercharger. Lots of little bits. There's that really detailed bulkhead I showed earlier. Got the engine mounts getting glued to this. You got some plumbing, a lot more plumbing there, and then the engine is seated inside of the engine mount. Got some radiators. There's the outer fairing covers, and then as that assembly, that is then attached to the fuselage. Here's those little panels here for covering the engine. You've got those little tiny magnets, and they've got their little spots where they go, and then they'll just get clipped into place. Lower part of the engine cover. Here's the mask for the canopy. Painting it up, gluing the bits in. Got a little rear vision mirror there. And then over here you can either have that cockpit panel door open or closed. Prop. Got your machine gun going in. So they're the Hispano 20mm cannons. So the early versions like the Mark 1s, they only had 4 Brownings in them. Okay, so these are drop tanks. So you've got them, they can be fit down here. There's a stand, goes together very easily. You can see how that all screws together. So they can either go into a drop tank and your aircraft just sits on top. Got your landing gear there. And then you end up with your instructions on painting the figures, decal stencil placement, and then the guides for each of your liveries. Okay, so that's Bobby Gibbs, the Australian version. We've got Italy. That's Canadian Air Force. And then the American one, I think, is on a separate. There we go, it's on a separate print. And this one is Italy. So very nice. There we go. So there is my open box review of the Supermarine Spitfire Mk.VIII. This is by TAMIYA in 1:32 scale. So if you like the review, please give me a like below. And if you'd like to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much.